Hello, my name is Harton Botco. You're on to the third episode, the last episode of this show. With us, we have Rick Ramos. We're talking about InfraWatch, Infrastructure Watch. What have we discussed in the last two episodes? That one, the perception you and I carry of Pinoy as well as the DPWH Secretary seem to be faltering. The Daan Matuwid, well, let's hear more about that. Rick Ramos is likewise a columnist, and this week he had an article in the Inquirer. Rick, can you tell us about this? Yung Daan Matuwid, papunta sa Bangin.
Yeah, di ba? Daan na matuwid.
Daan na matuwid.
Diretso daw, pero patungo sa Bangin. So it goes to the ravine. No? Well, I think the English translation for that also is that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
The perdition. It's the same thing as the yellow brick road.
Yes, exactly.
It goes exactly nowhere, wherein fallacies are right in front of the people. Now, how come this guy's getting away with it? How can a president who goes around the world and boasts of reforms, and I'm trying to figure out, reforms, okay, let's see. DOTC, reforms. Gee, it's full of graft and corruption. In fact, there's now a case with the ombudsman. What else? Well, what reforms? Education? My gosh, don't we see enough reports all over about schools not having enough desks and infrastructure? I mean, walang tigil, and yet this guy is getting... What is with this guy, Pinoy?
As I wrote in one of my columns, Daan na Matuwid is probably the greatest myth ever created. And the reason why Pinoy can get away with it, and this one I wrote in the Inquirer, is that unfortunately, until today, millions of Filipinos still believe in him, thinking that he is the person, who probably this is more of the halo effect of the mother. They think that he's a person who is really doing the right thing, who is upright in everything.
Even that statement, I have a hard time on.
Yeah.
The halo effect of the mom. Gee, we were in darkness. We had the opportunity to be the first in Asia with nuclear power. We lost that. All I understood about the Cory regime was, other than the 9 coups d'etats, the shooting on the streets, correct me if I'm wrong, was her hiding in the bed. Louis Beltran was running after, or was sued for that.
Libel.
And what did she do? Brought us into darkness, and that was it. Stagnation of the economy. Diba?
Yeah, well, speaking of that, I organized an NGO in the early 90s, the Environmental Network Center, and we were commissioned to do a study on the power crisis. And what is interesting is that we may ask the question if incompetence is genetic. Because if you really look at it, what happened during the last 2 years of Cory Aquino is exactly the same thing that will happen in the last 2 years of Pinoy in terms of the power crisis.
Yes, no, it's coming to a head. But the infrastructure, like his mother, did only one overpass. No, she
the flyovers.
The flyover in Ross Boulevard and the one in Buendia. That's
EDSA.
Dalawa lang. Hinabol pa yun, madalian. So Noynoy is doing the same thing.
Actually, Noynoy has no track record of anything when it comes to major infrastructure.
That's what I was asking earlier. Wala, di ba? Wala naman.
Let me just mention it very briefly, okay? Let's look at the major expressways, okay? The North Luzon Expressway.
GMA yun eh.
No, NLEX. NLEX was conceived during the time of Macapagal. It was executed, it was implemented during the time of Marcos, and it was improved during the time of FBR when the Lopez Group came in for the rehabilitation.
Correct.
Okay?
It's very right, yes.
Yeah. Then you look at SCTEX, the Subic-Clark-Tarlac Expressway, that was started, not many people know this, by ERAP. Using the Obuchi funds. The time there, the BCDA chairman was Rufo Colayco, okay? So they started that, and that was implemented during the time of GMA, okay?
Correct.
So you have NLEX, you have SCTEX, and now you have TPLEX, right? Tarlac, Pangasinan, La Union.
Yes.
That was done by GMA.
TPLEX.
And that has nothing to do with government. That's a PPP, private sector, right? This is with the DMCI group, San Miguel. What's interesting, last year, Pinoy Inisona cited it as one of his achievements where he had nothing to do, right?
He had nothing to do with it.
So we're now done with NLEX, SCTEX, and TPLEX. Now let's go to the South Luzon Expressway. The SLEX okay, from, let's say, from Magallanes all the way to Calamba.
Correct.
That was done by Marcos. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Then you have the Star Tollway
Star
from
Toll.
Santo Tomas to
Marcos
Lipa.
din yun, di ba?
No, the Star was ready by Ramos.
Ah, Ramos. And finished
The
during
continuation
Ramos.
of that, the continuation of the Star Expressway from Lipa to Batangas City up to the
Yes,
port
yes, to the
was
port.
by GMA.
Ah, okay.
The connection also, the missing link, the
missing
7.5
link, yes.
kilometers between Calamba and Santo Tomas,
Correct.
that's also done by GMA. And then if you look at the Skyway, which is helping us a lot, all the
Yes,
way
yes,
to
yes.
Alabang, that's by Ramos.
Si Ramos yun, oh, tama,
And then
tama.
the C5, which never existed before,
Which is a plan by
but
Marcos.
no, that's Ramos.
Ah,
that
Ramos.
was that was opened January 30, 1994. Okay.
But conceived during Marcos' time, di ba?
No,
All
no.
the circumferential roads?
No, this one, the C5, kay
Kay Ramos
Ramos yan.
talaga.
So what's interesting, if you look at the scheme of things, okay, President Aquino, Pinoy, really has done nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And yet he has boasted the most all around the world. Of
Even in the airports, the
Oh,
A1,
wala.
2, 3. I mean, there's really nothing.
He's not going to be able to finish anything at this point if he started anything now anyway. It's a little bit too late.
Well, 4 years have passed, and the only thing going for the PPP of the DPWH is the link road between the South Superhighway.
Are going to NLEX.
No, South Superhighway linking the Daanghari. That's 4 kilometers.
That's
This is
it.
beside the. But what's interesting, that's not even his project.
Kanina
Okay.
yun, kanina naman
That
yan.
project was started by GMA.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, in August of 2009, that project was started. There was a joint venture between PNCC and NDC. They started it.
Right.
When the Pinoy became president, that was already 30% complete.
Tinapos na lang.
No. Pinoy stopped it. Okay? And that project was stolen from the joint venture
Yun yung
by
kay Villar.
DPWH. Huh?
Di ba yan yung kay Villar?
Yeah,
Hindi.
Villar has something to do with it. But what's interesting there, this project that was started in August 2009 should have been finished by December 2011. It's a short 4 kilometers road, which you can do in 2 years.
Right.
But guess what happened? That was stopped by the Aquino administration. They bidded it out in December of 2011. The Ayala land won. But because of what was done by DPWH, I'll be blunt about it, they did a stupid thing, wherein for 2 years that project didn't move.
Yes.
So it's only in 2014 that they started the project, and it will be finished by February. And this is the one that's causing all the traffic in Alabang, in Commerce Avenue.
That's the reason why it's a mess there.
Of course. Yeah.
So that 4 kilometer, I know it's the one behind where the
That's
where
behind
the
the,
Villar
Bilibid.
projects. Yeah, the Bilibid.
Bilibid, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that road.
Yeah.
Tinigil nga yun. That's nakatiwangwang yun. 4 na taon na pala yun. And now he's going to say he started and finished this.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, President Aquino, he doesn't want any credit to go to his predecessor.
But why is it even the Makati Business Club and a lot of the big tycoons, why are they putting him on a pedestal? Why do they say that, oh, magaling si Pinoy and everything?
Well,
I mean-
I'm not sure that they do. It's just that, being in business, they cannot be very vocal against him. But as
I've heard the Makati Business Club speaker head-on praising the president. It doesn't make sense.
Well, these guys are in business. But remember, sometime early this year, the joint chambers of commerce, even the Philippine Chamber of Commerce, the Makati Business Club, and the Management Association of the Philippines, they came up with a joint statement for amending the Constitution to remove the economic provisions to be able to attract foreign investments. But the thing was, Pinoy was against it. You can just imagine how they felt.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I mean, they cannot be very vocal about it. Like, you cannot expect Ramon del Rosario to speak out openly against the president.
But it is imperative that he does, because it is not only for his future, for the business community. I mean, if this guy is really misdirecting us, which it seems, and he's coming up with lies. And it's in the media, and it seems to work. His battering ram, his PR machinery seems to be very effective. And binibilog niya ang ulo ng Pilipino. This cannot bode well for a country, for a sustained development. Now he is, of course, we all know he boasts of the current economic situation. But this is all by the work of GMA, if I'm not mistaken. How can this guy continue to get away with it with a group like InfraWatch, who is there, who writes them, who writes the Secretary Singson, and he knows may nagbabantay sa kanya, and in spite of that, parang wala akong pakialam sa inyo. It's like, huli na si Purisima, sinasabi niya, simple lang ang bahay ko. The whole media was there this morning. It was a big media affair, and it's obvious it's big. How come they can get away with it?
Well, as I said earlier, you still have a good percentage of the population.
So, bobo ang Pilipino.
Who believes, well, basically that's true. Because if you look at the profile of the electorate, if you have the A, B, C, D, E, the AB group is less than 10% of the electorate.
I still seem to see a lot of yellow ribbons and cars. Minsan gusto ko basagin yung mga kotse na gano'n eh. No, but there is still, no? There's still some who are matigas ang ulo. Maybe kumikita sila sa gobyerno.
The other thing, yesterday, I brought my children and my wife to Dagat-Dagatan, and we really saw,
Malabon
we
yan.
smelled, and we
I've seen it. I've been there
savored the
many
squalor.
times. Yes.
And I wish that President Aquino would go there.
Oh,
and
no, that's
see.
too dirty for him. Excuse me.
He cannot.
Elite yan eh.
Yeah, and you can see that in the last 4 years, this government has done nothing, both for the poor people, for the housing. I mean, these people are living in not only subhuman but inhuman conditions. And even if you look at the road network, going there,
yes,
they have not done anything in 4 years. And the worst thing now that Secretary Babe Singson with DPWH is doing, you have good roads along Rojas Boulevard, and he's destroying it, reblocking it, and the cost is 70 million.
That's what we're seeing now.
You know, 70 million, if you do housing for the poor at 100,000 per family, 70 million is good for 700 families.
What is 145 billion good for? Because we seem to have not accounted for it. Ne, di ba? We could really rebuild housing for the poor.
Yeah.
And take them out of disaster zones, you know, climate areas that are where they're dangerous and volatile, di ba?
Yeah. Actually, for 10 billion pesos, you can actually provide housing for 500,000 Filipinos.
Well, let's put 100 billion there and give for everybody. Hindi, di ba?
Yeah.
Kung yun talagang gusto. So, we've got a problem. We're going to end the show in a short while. Now, how can we make heads or tails of this? Ang Pinoy naluloko, marami nanluloko sa media, ang presidente linuloko ang taong bayan, yung mga katauhan niya, katabi niya, linuloko taong bayan, they can't even account for the 145 billion of the DAP. There's so much infrastructure going on, we have no idea where it is. This president has no real direction, and he boasts to the rest of the world. Nakakatawa dyan, it's not only the Filipinos na naluloko, ha? Naluloko niya Amerikano, naluloko niya Europeano,
Yeah,
naluloko niya lahat.
in Europe.
Oh, di ba? So, there's a strong disconnect that's going on. Either you and I know something they don't, or you and I are misled and they know everything, and tayong dalawa na ang nagagago dito. Di ba? Parang ganun lumalabas eh.
Well, actually, what's happening here is because the Filipinos, believe that the president is clean. As he even said, remember during the issue of DAP, he went on national television October of last year.
Hindi ako magnanakaw.
Exactly. And it's no different from Cory. That's why I'm saying I cannot, in 2010, I cannot vote for this guy because he has no added value. Because during Cory's time, she was not corrupt. She was above corruption, but corruption around her was tolerated.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same thing now.
It's probably worse now. Rick, we're at the end of the show. What message do you want to give these hard-headed people who like to believe that the president is still all clean?
Okay. What I can say is that the president does not exactly tell the Filipino people the truth, not exactly because he is lying, but because he is given information that are not true, and he does not bother to validate them, perhaps because he's either too lazy to validate them, or because he simply believes in his people who will not do anything wrong.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed our program. Unlike Rick, I'm not going to be nice. He likes to still put the president in a pedestal and say he's above corruption. Alam nyo, simple yan eh. The mastermind, the leader of any ring, is still responsible. Ang tawag po dyan, well, it's like the law, no? Ignorance is not part of the law. It's unacceptable. The leader has to be made responsible at the end of the day. Unlike Rick, I disagree. I think our leader, Pinoy, is graft-ridden and corrupt as well, simply because he stands by his men. Alam nyo, there's an old tale, fairy tale. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. And all the king's horses and all the king's men just couldn't piece him together again. Now, what does that tell you? Duh. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
You are what you watch.